Kaleigh, and welcome to this video where I'm going to take you behind the scenes in creating these images, show you how I made the headpiece for them, and talk a bit about where the inspiration came from. So let's start with the inspiration. I put a lot of value on rituals, not necessarily the undead summoning sort, but the self-care sort that are small and simple, but pay dividends you can't imagine. For me, it's a cup of tea in the morning, usually chai with lots of honey, and taking my dog Winston for walks. I think it's important to come from a place of non-expectancy with these things, to do them because we enjoy them, but never demand more of them than we should. In this, we leave ourselves open to the gifts they choose to give us, and not the ones that we want, if that makes any sense. I love walking Winston because he helps bring me to the present moment, to enjoy outside and to actually move the healthy, functioning body I've been given. It was on a walk with him through the city park that the inspiration for this photo came. We walked near the river and I caught the whiff of the most fragrant flowers, and there were mass clusters of beaming white petals that had bloomed not 2 days prior. It's September at this point, and I am baffled that there are flowers continuing to explode in glorious blossoms as the rest of the world begins to wind down for slumber. I knew I had to photograph these flowers, and I knew I didn't have much time. Who knows how long they'd stay in bloom for. I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, but nothing concrete. The next day, I headed to the trusty dollar store to pick up some supplies and began work on my first headpiece of any notable size. I didn't actually film myself making it because I was so in the zone that it completely slipped my mind, but I will walk you through how I created the base of it. I started with a piece of foam core, and using a foam head, which does not fit in this frame apparently, I referenced the size I'd need to cut for it to fit my head and traced around that. I knew I wanted a semicircle shape for the headpiece, so from there I drew curved lines from the middle top out to the bottom corners to create that shape, and then cut, as these scissor hands are clearly demonstrating. So from there I had my shape, and I taped 2 headbands together and hot glued my foam core semicircle onto them. I then rounded up a bunch of fake flowers to cover it with. I poked holes with a screwdriver for bigger flowers to push the stems through and attach them all with hot glue, covering as much of the board as possible. And ta-da! My original vision was to have this headpiece completely white to pay homage to the pure white of the flowers I was inspired by, but I loved the way it was so bright and colorful that I knew I had to take some photos of it before I painted it. So I headed out with a backpack of gear, a tripod, this giant headpiece, and of course, Winston. I had an idea of the location I wanted to go to, but couldn't remember the easiest way to get there and encountered a lot of steep inclines and even more spider webs. I actually yelped at one point. It wasn't even a scream, it was a yelp. I have a very healthy respect for spiders, but gosh dang, So after much traipsing, we found our location and I shot these images. Then it was time to paint this piece. I don't know why, but in my head I figured one pass with a can of spray paint would completely cover all of it. But no, it took about 5 coats of paint, and then I ran out of paint, but also fell in love with the pastel frosted goodness that this piece had now taken on. I then added some lace to cover the eyes, again using the foam head as a reference to simply hot glue it in place in the back. I also added some dangling leaves, which I suspended using thin craft wire and hot glue. I painted them with the last drops of my spray paint and finished them off with acrylic paint. I was running out of time and only had 1 day that week where my husband Matthew could help me shoot it while there was still daylight. He's pretty awesome, by the way. I was so relieved when we got there and the flowers were still so vibrant. We set up on the grass on the side of the road that cut through the park. 5 cars passed during our half-hour shoot, and you bet your bottom dollar, every single one slowed down to take in the spectacle that was a strange girl with a wedding dress and a giant piece of foam on her head. It was awesome. I then took my favorite images into Photoshop, waved a magic wand, and voila! And that's all I have for you today. Thank you for making it to the end of the video and coming along on this adventure, and I look forward to taking you on some more. Bye!